So let's talk about engineering. Oh, come on! I promise it will be interesting, and it's very important. Yes, I know that a lot of people just check out as soon as this topic comes up, but please, stick with me. I think that engineering is probably the most important and beneficial system that Elite has ever received. It's a potential force for incredible good, but with it has also come some unexpected consequences. My aim with this video, essay, blob, thing, mega rant, whatever you want to call it, is to examine the system and present a few arguments why it must change, and offer maybe even some solutions to a few of these issues. Because right now you can have game-breaking, overpowered ships, weapons, and whatnot else, through which the game itself becomes less challenging, unfair, less stable, and obviously more grindy. While I believe with the careful thinking and planning it is possible to strike a sweet spot, we must look deep within to see how we got here. So let's start from the beginning. What is engineering? Well, that question may seem simple but harder to answer than you think. See, in-game there's not much information as is, and that honestly would be the first place that we could put in some improvement. But anyways, my question is it an upgrade system or a side grade system? Now, after contacting developers, I got somewhat certain answer that the main thing is upgrade-like system, while the experimentals are kind of side grades. Yeah, this is going swimmingly already, I know, but bear with me. Generally, engineering is an upgrade system through which you can further customize your ships to quite a unique degree. Now, in order to examine where it goes wrong, we also must take a crash course in its development history. Oh boy. So at first it was introduced on the second update for Horizon's Season Pass. Yes, it's still called that. It's a Season Pass. Anyways, engineering was the other half, or the actual gameplay for planetary landings, and the primary motivator for it. Through different tasks you were rewarded these new things called materials, which at first were capped at 300, or was it 500, or was it 1000? Well, in any case, the point was that for materials, it was all one big pot, not a separate storage that we have for every material today. So that was designed to limit the amount of rolls you could do at one time. That can be good, forcing you not to overfarm things and take a break to go and spend all the materials you got on engineering once you're full, as well as not allowing the player to do too many rolls at one time. Oh, and speaking of designed and originally intended gameplay, back in the day, in order to get a higher tier upgrade, you had to have a commodity item in your cargo hold as well. Safe to say that was quickly removed as it was really clearly annoying for a lot of us, and further limited the ability to do more upgrades, but generally everyone just hated it as it was annoying. And if that already doesn't sound pretty annoying, the first version of engineering, if some of you remember, did look like a slot machine. A gambling slot machine, where also unrelated stats each got a random roll. So that basically means that every slider bar was not affected by others. Yeah, this took me about 5 minutes to code. I mean, really, how hard is this? Because of this, you were not guaranteed to get a better roll, or at least balance-wise equal, but different outcome. This made every ship ever so slightly different, but that also meant that you would have a chance to waste your time by providing objectively worse results. So basically, the system was designed to waste your time, but potentially nullifying any work you had put in gathering materials. However, this, after about 2 years of countless complaints, was changed to a more proper every roll is better than the last system that made it more rewarding, fair, and predictable both to players and developers. Yet to introduce changes, you can't just remove everyone's engineered modules, wiping them, even if you compensate them in some form or another. Oh, no. You also can't just nerf the value proportionally to fit the new system. That would mean that people would stick with the old modules. And we have to have old modules, of course, so no, not this one. Oh, and of course, you can't just force players to just have their modules converted to the new system. That would hurt some Care Bear PvP players' feelings. Oh, no, 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 no. So if you can't vibe, if you can't clench up, well, the only way is to let it all go and go up. This is where developers were too afraid to just put their foot down and say, for the betterment and fairness of the game, even though many of you we know have spent incredible amount of time in the system, will have to give up your upgrades so we all can get a better game overall. It is a sacrifice we must all make. And I'll talk about that at the end as well, but why not offer a compensation to players according to their roles they have done to get rid of the old system? Was that too inflammatory and you don't want to burst a hemorrhoid? Well, thanks to that we got a little bit more of a power creep of a feature. This is where elite developers should have learned from Warframe developers and their willingness to remake a system. But I digress. Now, is there a point to this? Why not just get rid of the system if you say it's so bad? To answer that, let's first look at the why is engineering such a good thing and why people choose to use it. Yes, the upgrades to further improve your ships, but there's not just one singular upgrade for modules, allowing you the choice of improving aspects of your ship while getting a little downside somewhere else, like increasing the speed of your ship, but in process of that, having your ship put out more heat. Amount of upgrades and side grades, especially with experimental effects, opened a never-before-seen flood of unique builds and insane customization. I frankly love this idea, and it truly makes for a wonderful endgame content. And it wasn't just the rewards, but the way you would be given these upgrades as well, through encouraging players to go out and do multiple different types of gameplays, was also wonderful. Ah, okay, I see, you're kinda confused there, so maybe I should explain with an example there, Bob. Say you want to improve ship's jump range. Well, for that you need an engineer that can do it. So first you need to learn where the engineer is located, and to do that, usually you have some sort of a task given to you. Say, travel 500 light years. Simple, right? Okay, once that's done, the engineer will request you to do another job. Say, deliver 10 units of tea for them, cause, you know, he's a Brexit man. I mean, British. Okay, you did that too. Now you have already done two tasks, but different ones. First, you traveled and explored probably along the way, and having done that, shown that you know how to navigate. Next, since you have shown that you can navigate, you will go to a specific place and then trade. Then return. This is very organic game design that I don't see much in Elite, but with engineers, it was nice to see. Anyways, you unlock the NG and now you want to get that upgrade. Well, to get that done, you need 3 materials, as the upgrade asks. 1 raw, 1 manufactured, and 1 encoded. This too is basically a game designer asking you to do few different things for the upgrade. First, the raw material. This is usually found on planet surfaces as you drive along, so you need to just do some SRV driving for this one. Second, the manufactured. This one you can get from blowing up ships or finding it in signal sources, so usually combat is the thing that is asked here. And third, the encoded. You usually get this from scanning things, basically looking at something, a non-combat exploratory style gameplay, though it usually devolves into just looking at ships from afar, so it's not very good. Still, no matter how you slice it, the fact is that you were offered an upgrade if you proved that you've done a little bit of everything. It's a common game design tactic which makes gameplay very organic and can lead to some great things, like player being introduced to gameplay that they end up loving. And all that because there was a good incentive to try it out in the first place. That as an idea sounds great. But we're not here because everything is great. Far from it. I would say that everything is horribly unpolished and malformed. Sometimes barely designed or tested. Okay, Amix, you know game design, wow, smart, grat, oh wow. But why do we need to make sure that the systems become balanced? 2 words, power creep. See, thanks to upgrades, things get more powerful, and where there is power, there's the lack of it as well. A good example is just to compare an average Joe who say has 1 or 2 upgrades at 50% done and he encounters a player who has maxed out everything. How big is the chance that that average Joe will actually be able to escape with his life, not to mention fight back? Or how big is going to be the power gap between the two opposing traders who try to play power play? Okay. Okay, sorry, nobody plays power play. Let's say background simulation. Yes, BGS. Say, 2 players compete by supporting their favorite faction. How big is going to be the power difference between those 2? Or how big could it ever get? Now that is what you need to keep in mind to make the game. These are the things, questions, and more that you need to keep in mind when designing a PvP environment for non-RPG game. Now, if you could segment and match players with equally powered players, yes, that'd be less of an issue. But Elite is an open world sandbox, and we must not only make sure that the PvE environments, NPCs and more are properly adjusted, but also the tools that the players use on each other. Like it or not, my solo playing elitists, this game is an MMO. Devs themselves brand it as such.
Wait, it's an RPG?
Remember that engineering also widens the gap between the players who play with Horizons and those without. So, making sure that the PvP or co-op gameplay is not horribly skewed towards one thing will make sure that the game is rewarding, interesting, and fair. Of course, with power creep, there's also a massive disservice that is done to challenging gameplay. You see, with all the power and customization, it's so easy to drive the gameplay into a stale and boring meta corner where there's just only one strategy that's so much more effective than anything else. It'd be stupid to pick anything else. Furtherlands, anyone?
Yeah, Mix, you've flaunted your hypercritical claims left and right, but you've yet to present how is engineering broken?
Oh. You want examples? Well, strap on in, my friends. It's pegging time. First, there are upgrades in this system that are literally a waste of your time and materials. One good example here is a system-focused power distributor upgrade. This one's a counterpart in exact numbers as the engine or weapon-focused ones, but unlike them, we don't have tools on our ships that benefit from this the same way the other two do. For weapons, you do need that extra regeneration and capacity to make just pew-pews happen. For engines, you can either more frequently boost or use the leftover pips for other parts of your ship. But for systems, there is no module that would drain it on triggers so much. Nor does the system energy benefit from more capacity or regeneration beyond of what the pips offer. Also, if you need regeneration and capacity alone, then why sacrifice engines and weapons when you can pick the general regeneration and general capacity upgrades for all 3 instead? This upgrade seems to be placed in the game just to fit that checkbox for developers without examining if you actually would need it, and it's not alone. There are others, the so-called templated upgrades that are just tossed in to mark a checkbox. But is it the worst thing in the world? No, of course not. Yet it plainly shows that there hasn't been care given enough to make sure that it at least makes sense. And as we move on further, you'll see where that can lead. Anyways, let's move on to another example. In many cases, it would be the flow control experimental. Well, a side grade, as developers claim, a side grade to what? Side grade implies a compensative loss somewhere for the benefit you gain, but I don't think the developers know what they themselves are talking about here. Or at least the PR people. But okay, let's say the PR people who gave me this answer are wrong. Experimentals actually are upgrades. Well, some upgrades are better than other upgrades to a point where they are almost objectively better. And that's my point. There are plethora of choices that have not been paired with their alternatives to make sure neither is overpowering on the others in the system without so much as a forethought.
Yeah, what's this? It's an upgrade. Is it OP?
No, I don't think so, but I'd like some feedback on it.
Shut up and put it in. I don't care about your degree in balansonomics. Go make me another microtransaction.
Yes, most of these copy-pasted ones are inferior, in fact, but still positive, so not many call them out. But then, why have them? Are you telling me that you placed them in here just as a trap for stupid people? To waste players' time and effort while masquerading as a positive? But okay, let's keep on going, shall we? Now, if you're talking about copy-pasted and templated design, did you know that, with a few exceptions, engineering is a percentile-based system? Now, this can be done just as well as fixed value systems, and as well equally horribly twisted in the wrong way, as we shall learn in a moment, but for majority of modules, the stat increase is not so much as curated and set with an exact expectation, but rather given a blanket rounded percentile number, and forgotten about, of course, even when the result is, shall we put, borderline special needs. And so, as an example, I present the case of heatsinks versus other utilities. So there is this really useful upgrade for ammo that utilities have. It most importantly gives 50% ammo capacity. But even before we stepped into the rink of balancing, the game has pile-driven our faces in the mud by not telling you that it does not increase all the ammo. It increases the additional ammo that is not already loaded in the proverbial gun. Well, in total, heatsinks have 3 charges, 1 loaded and 2 extra, and thanks to this upgrade, it gets 1 extra, making it 4 total. The game misleads you, making you think that you got more, but in reality, instead of that 50%, you got 33% total increasement. Now, on the other hand, chaff has 1 charge loaded and 10 extra. So, thanks to this upgrade, you get a total of 16 charges. And that gives you 45% improvement instead of 50. Oh, and even better yet, the point defense. It has 12 shots in the magazine, and additionally carries 10,000 extra ammo. And so thanks to this upgrade, you get 15,012 bullets, which of course leads us to 49.9% improvement. First, you clearly see how heatsinks, though the most useful of the bunch, gets what I call template copy pasted. Because developers wanted to make it easy on themselves, they just copied the same upgrade for all utilities, disregarding whether it made sense or not, and whether or not it represented things correctly or not as well. And second, you can clearly see that this template was driven by heatsinks, and sure, give us that 1 extra charge, it's nice, but then utilities that don't really matter get absurd buffs that they don't themselves really need, like the point defense. So now tell me, when was the last time any of you ever ran out of point defense ammo? Ever, without the upgrade? Do you really need it? Or could have you perhaps used something else to fight, oh I don't know, packhounds maybe? Basically, what the game designers did here was take the strongest thing and balance according to it, and never even bother to look if the upgrade that is given to others like it, or in the same class, even need it, or make any sense. We are returning to the same old "I just had to put it in for checkmark" principle, and of course heatsinks also get a 50% reload increasement, while others only have 10%, because who cares, right? Others are not OP, so we can buff them to high heaven. Oh, but wait, the lack of competency is called to question not only for game designers, but also QA testers, thanks to this upgrade. You see, every time you die, you spawn in a station with your ship and get all the ammo resupplied, except for explosive weapons. Now, I still don't understand why this decision was made, and it's very stupid as we often forget to manually resupply it when we leave or swap weapons, but anyways. Utilities like point defense and chaff with this upgrade added also get resupplied properly, yet heatsinks only get the standard 2 charges back. I know this is a nitpick, but it has been in the game since the start. They clearly tested and coded that you would get back that 15,000 point defense bullets, but not the 3 extra charges for heatsink? Remember, these developers have not gone back to re-examine the system at all, even when making Engineering 2.0, because how else this bug would be still from 2016 existing? But no one cares, move on! Okay, well, you want to see the best example of the proof that this system is percentile based, and no one cares to double check their own work? Well, look no further than your own ship's hull. More precisely, lightweight bulkheads. If you apply heavy-duty upgrade onto them, you may conveniently also see something missing from the list of changed values. You see, the negative effect is gone. Yes, just like that, it's gone. While normally inspecting this upgrade for bulkheads, you will see the negative mass increase. Now, why would that be? Why would developers choose to remove the negative effect for your basic hull, yet leave it in for the other types? Even by the game's logic, it makes zero sense, as you attempt to harden your hull and beef it up with more armor as you put more on it. Obviously it gets heavier, yet here you don't. Answer to this is the aforementioned percentile-based improvements. See, lightweight bulkheads, unlike other bulkheads, have the mass of 0.
So, if you take a 0 and multiply it with anything you want, the result is still a 0.
See, the issue with all these percentages and not fixed stats is that the bigger the value, the bigger the increase proportionally. But in Elite, a game where you can have both super small ships and super large ones occupying the same space, these multipliers get out of hand super quick and cause ever larger gaps between the weakest and the strongest. But, as it happens, the biggest case of the brokenness actually is caused by a rare case of fixed value system. So I present you the case of shield boosters. So how could this go wrong? As an example, let's take a heavy-duty upgrade and an A-graded booster. So for anyone with a working brain, this is the simple calculations. At default, it has 20% boost, and it ends up with 73.9. So the improvement is 370%. Wait, what? And better yet, if we take an E-rated booster that has only mere 4% boost and apply the same upgrade, it goes to 50.7%, which is a case of over 1000% improvement! Just think about that for a moment. Now, in comparison, if you take hull armor, not bulkheads or hull reinforcements will go about 100% improvement, so the total hull with best of upgrades won't be doubling your HP. But with shields, the things that prevent enemy from targeting your internal modules and damaging them, plus are regenerative on top, can go from almost 3000 to 10,000 points, effectively more than tripling this regenerative, super protective health. This, as a matter of fact, has been a long-standing issue with Elite, and the primary cause of many unfair ities. Here, I present you the case where someone did not know how to do double multiplication, despite probably having a higher education in programming. Now, I don't want to rag on British education, but damn! Now, I could talk all day about this particular upgrade and how it causes Elite to be very stale and boring to fight in. But the way shield boosters work too is a case of oversight. So, in general, shield boosters represent the very worst of fixed and percentile-based stat upgrades. This is where the unchecked and careless design can lead. And this is where I urge you, my dear viewer, to be smart and ask for change, and developers to have enough balls to change things. Well, okay, let's say we get the booster changes. Will that change things? Maybe, but as long as we have engineering breathing down our necks, we won't get far. Case in point, healing beams. Many shiver even thinking about this upgrade. So, to put it bluntly, here's what one small, and I repeat, small beam laser with this upgrade can do. Now I challenge you to tell me how that right there is balanced, fair, and you really need it. Oh, and once you're done with that, take a look at the miscellaneous upgrades. This is the case of... the workday is almost done. Here. This'll do the rest, no one cares anyways. It feels like everything that is not a weapon, core module, shields, or hull are like that 8th child in the family, just there by the accident, or just because you thought that number 8 is lucky, and you just had to have it, rather than actually going out and making it interesting and unique. Instead, just wrap everything up in one bundle and shove it out. Kind of careless and apathetic if you ask me. again. And I guess more than anything, the message here is that engineering is a half-assed system with copy-pasted and minimally altered values. Oh, but let's say you're a new player to the game and don't even know what pips mean, let alone engineering. All that you know is that there are upgrades and you need them. Well, isn't it nice that engineering has literally no information about itself in the game? Or rather, very, very little, and even then it's questionable. Case in point, wide-angle scanners. Its description reads as following. You're like family, and family gets the best. Improves the angle at which the scanner works, but increases mass and scanning time. You won't find any better in the bubble, and its effect. Okay, so, where's the weight penalty? What? Maybe back in the day it had that, but clearly descriptions have not been updated since that. And you expect players to trust you? Oh, but then we got experimentals like, let's pick, say screening shell. Modified firing and targeting mechanism decreases reload times and increasing effectiveness against munitions. Well, did you get that? Do you understand what it does?
No?
Good! Oh, wait. Experimentals are the biggest pain shells of this lack of explanation that engineering has. For example, did you know that screening shell doubles the pellet count when you shoot? That alone is important information. How do you expect your players to know what the hell they're doing in the game if you never tell them anything? What game design school teaches you to not tell your players anything and expect that to be a good thing? This also applies to weapons too. Half of the info is missing most of the time, but I digress. You know, I did ask you, my dear viewers, a little while back, what's the worst part about engineering? And frankly, the answers were not surprising. It's material grinding. Now, here's the thing, my friends. You need to understand two things before we move on. Number one, material grinding is designed to be grindy, to make you play the boring loops for a long time. That's how elite designers, managers, producers think you can make good gameplay. That's never changed since day one. And number two, materials will never be exchangeable for credits or commodities, period. So, about number one, engineering is the intended endgame loop and has been built to take a lot of time, and like you, I despise it. As for number two, it seems a lot of you have this weird misconception that materials are like things, real things. That just because it has a name you understand, it actually is that thing. Like say iron. You think that this is an actual item in-game or something? So that means you also expect it to have functions or features like iron? But it's not. I suppose I should explain it better. Let's say Elite is like a carnival fair. You look around and walk around and think, okay, I'll go play some BB gun shooting thingamajig, right? Once you've done it, the owner gives you the ticket labeled iron. Then you ask, well, what it's for. And the owner tells you that with enough tokens like these, you can go and exchange them for a prize in the engineering tent. Does that mean that this token is made of iron? Or has any value? Or is designed to be sold for money? Obviously not. Materials are just like credits in Elite. They are a form of currency. And clearly, not to invalidate one gameplay grinding loop with another, they will clearly never have exchange rate. This is that weird thinking I noticed among few who suggest buying materials with credits. Basically, with that thinking, you're implying here, hey devs, I want to use a completely unrelated gameplay to earn tokens that are designed for some other gameplay. Like going to a cave, mining rocks, and getting the best flower bouquet out of it, instead of rocks. So no, you will never buy materials with credits. Deal with it. However, people complain about material gathering, calling it a grind, where a lot of people just simply outright refuse to use that, just because of the absurdity of grinding that you are asked to do just to get one module fully kitted. And they're not wrong, it doesn't help that the gameplay that was originally intended for gathering these materials is still absurd farce. Like for example, to get an FSD increased jump range update, probably the most popular upgrade, original intended gameplay for it is to do a few different gameplays, like driving on a planet's surface and doing some combat, but most importantly you need to do something that includes FSDs and so on and so forth. So what you need to do is sit in space somewhere and wait until NPCs are jumping to another system. Wow, much gameplay, such potato. No, seriously, I'm not joking. This is the original intended gameplay, and rewards are purely random based. So, no skill, no predictability, just constant dice rolling, so that you can unlock a better tier upgrade. Where is the value in such a gameplay? In a normal game, to get the biggest sword, you don't need to go to the starter village and kill boars on hours on end. But in Elite, that's exactly what you do! And the same thing can also be said about most of Material Gathering and its gameplay. Everything is RNG based, which smells of poor, haphazard, thrown together gameplay. No skill, just luck. Though yeah, sure, Elite is not a game with gambling, loot boxes and whatnot else, but it sure feels like I'm constantly rolling the dice without the loss of money. Only time. So really, you're gambling your time.
Nay, Amix, everyone knows you go to Dove's Hope or Crash Gems and Cobra to collect materials.
Yes, that's what the smart folks do, but that's not what developers seemingly had intended. Those are outliers of that engineering gameplay. Anomalies, if you will, that never were particularly intended.
Yeah, but okay, what about mission rewards and those material exchanges, you say?
So the material rewards and missions still random, and really was originally intended as the second attempt to alleviate the need to grind. If you're curious, the first attempt was to increase the material pickup from 1 to 3. Yes, back in the day when you still had commodities for rolls required, you would be picking up materials 1 per chunk, rather than like 3 now. That alone should tell you how misguided the design was. As for material exchangers, again, this is developers trying to sidestep the actual issue, rather than dealing with it head-on. A children's bandage on a landmine's victim. What developers are basically saying with this move was,
oh, yeah, if you found a way to grind a lesser or higher tier materials and find it more interesting, well, you could grind that and then,
with heavy penalties,
exchange them for desired things. Aren't we good? This is exciting. Praise our genius, yes.
It's always about not being willing to put your foot down and putting in effort and making sure that the gameplay is fun and interesting. Instead, let's make a cheap fix, so that they stop whining for a few weeks. With all these issues and all this, what looks like massive incompetence, the designers, the director of the game, hell, even QA staff don't seem to have cared to actually grind out the whole engineering. Like we have to, like they force us to do. Instead, just using their dev cheats, ignoring majority of the game that they have created. Every time developers go on their little streams and talk about engineering, they seem so disconnected from the game and the gameplay. It's shocking. And I'm saying this because no one who would actually have to play this like we have to would let this go on for long. Not to mention that the fleet carrier's first iteration basically show how out of touch the developer team is. It is time to change, and it has to be done in a big way, a way that is not sidestepping the issues. We don't need another useless item like Flechette Launcher to deal with these massive shields. We don't need a material trader to appease some Care Bears who sing your praises about being courageous when talking about grinding. We need an actual change, a complete rework of the system. And you know what? I do have a few ideas where we can get started. It's not every day when I come bearing some amazing things, but here's a little bit to get us started. Now let's start with the simplest things, of course, and easy to understand that even game director could comprehend. Number 1. Put all the stat changes and information on screen about the upgrades and experimentals. Just give the player info so that we don't have this greeting us every time we go grinding your game. There truly is no reason not to give the players all the info possible. Well, if there is a reason, I offer my counter argument.
Charge, 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 charge!
Oh, and you know what? While you're at it, how about you check if the description actually matches what the upgrade does? You know, so that you don't look like a complete incompetent fool? Then number 2, if you want to still be lazy and garner positive press, just increase the drop rates for materials all around. That's it. Just change materials from 3 per pickup to 6 or 12. Boom! Positive press. Done. But let's say you want to put in effort and go a little bit more drastic on the changes. Okay, now we're talking. Number 3, how about you get rid of engineer leveling? Now this was put in the game because basically you were able to immediately roll grade 5s. But since you don't need to do that, it feels like a remnant of the past and really doesn't add any grindy gameplay nor gameplay benefits to the player. So instead just simplify unlocking engineers to make the system a bit more appealing, that's it. Number 4, to further simplify engineering, allow people to engineer everything anywhere. Get rid of the pinned upgrades and instead introduce a timer if you really need some sort of penalty for not engineering at the engineer's home base. Like, as if you're transferring the module to him and telling him what to do with it, and then he transfers back the finished thing. This again is nothing but a time waster, and if you really want that, then how about a good old-fashioned time wall? Number 5, let's say you're even more courageous. Remove tier 4 and 5 upgrades. Why? Well, simple. Reduce the power creep that exists in the game, if you don't want to balance it. This is a lot simpler than going module by module and making sure that everything is, balanced. So just remove the top end of the power creep features. It's drastic, I know, but as you will learn, I am ready to make sacrifices. Number 6, to further reduce the randomness and increase predictability and fairness, remove rolling. Just set exact amount of materials that are required for 100%, 50% or whatever other percent upgrade. Enough with the RNG stuff. Make it fair. But okay, let's say you're like me and actually want to put in proper effort in your work and do your damn best. You are willing to make sacrifices to produce the better future for all. Well, these are the more drastic changes I would recommend taking. Number 7. Complete overhaul and redesign of upgrades. First, remove everyone's upgrades. Yes, this will cause every care bear on PvP, PvE and whatnot else to scream like someone's burning their testicles. But in order to remake something, you must destroy. Of course, you have to compensate everyone for the free upgrade tokens and whatnot else for the roles they have done in their lifetimes. I mean, this is being recorded in Codex after all, so there's not even a need for calculations or anything. But once you make it anew, examine and calculate. Make sure every upgrade makes sense and has its purpose. If you're scared that this won't work, I present you Warframe. They remade several parts of their game, even several times, and people recognize the effort after examining it and even grow to love it and realize that it was all for the better. Warframe and countless other games have shown that this has been done and can be done, so I implore you to here. Number 8. Alternatively, remove engineering completely. Sure, this will invalidate the time that the people have spent because of this system, but in the form it is right now, it's trash and makes Elite Dangerous into a worse game than it was before it. Of course, I do prefer the number 7 method, but if you don't want to go through all of that, well, this is kind of better. Nothing is better than what we have right now, and that is for the sake of game's fun elements. It'd be more fairer gameplay, and I'm willing to give up my engineering modules and time up just to have a better future, be it through the complete removal as I suggest here or the previous one, which I again prefer more. So there you go, and I ask unto you, are you ready or even interested to make a similar sacrifice? Or are you just okay with the status quo? In the end, there's really not much left to say. The point I'm making is that engineering not only uses haphazardly thrown together buffs that make some things pointless while others outrageously powerful, there is missing information in general, the system borderline breaks the game, and I do wish engineering was remade with interesting and fun, more importantly, fair but varied features. See, I love the customization, and many of you probably do too, but as is, the astounding ineptitude and even basic reasoning is abandoned for current engineering. The power creep has settled in and we all live in a very monotone status quo. I really wish there would be a change for this, and you, my dear viewer, could help that happen. So, I ask all, go out and talk about this. Let developers know that you want a change, and change for a better game. Share my video if you like, but I encourage to go and let your voice and opinion be heard on forums, as unfortunately developers don't acknowledge Reddit as a valid place. Still, we can send a message and it has to be a loud one. Believe it or not, but beating the dead horse does attract attention, so take your favorite sticks and twigs, show me your best swing. Oh, you're still here? Well, thanks for watching. It's been a massive undertaking, truly. This is the second such massive video that I've done, and it's never easy. But the help through Patreon supporters and stream supporters and whatnot else is incredible. So if you too want to join, I really would appreciate it. Links down below. Oh, and of course some merch links as well there, so check those out. What else? If you want to watch some of other videos, I mean, they are probably floating around somewhere. But I do streaming too, so YouTube and Twitch, check those out. Oh, but if you want to discuss things further, join the Discords. So yeah, I'm nearing 100,000 subscribers, slowly, but still steadily. So the dream is kind of coming true. Right, I guess I need to go and rest now.